Hello everyone, this is Solaris290 and I'm here today to give my reaction to chapter 565 of Kingdom, entitled Upon the Front Lines. So this chapter moves us away from Heki and Katali's battlefield and focuses instead on the ongoings of Yotanwa, Bajior, Taji Fushunmen, basically the main core of Yotanwa's army, against Gorba, and later on Rozo of the Quanrong. This was a pleasant change of scene. As much as I enjoyed seeing the focus on Heki and Kitali, particularly deepening their relationship, and having Kitali's death by Bunen was not only a good way to hammer in the stakes, show just how crucial this battle is for Qin as a whole, but also give the Quanrong some much needed danger in terms of them being really harsh and tough opponents for Yotanwa's army. Before this, Yotanwa and her army have tended to triumph pretty easily over their opponents. I mean, off screen we saw that they trashed numerous armies in order to expand their territory, and of course they had the element of surprise against the Zhao army during the Battle of Sai. So it's good to have had them really struggle against the Quanrong ever since they were introduced. And with Katali's death by Bunen and showing off Gorba's strategical skill, it's showing just again how much of a ruthless opponent they are. And of course when you throw Shinsuiju into the mix, it makes it even more deadly, as we find out this chapter. So starting off, we have the messengers from the Quanrong reaching Gorba, and they have with them the two pieces of news. First of all, that Bunen has managed to slay one of the mountain tribes' sub-commanders and scattered their army. But on the other hand, they also have troubling news that Torque has fallen in battle. However, to Gorba, he doesn't show any particular respect towards Torque, calling him a disgrace on the Quanrong. His main concern is whether or not this effect will ripple onto his own battlefield, and his messengers assure him that no, since the Vigo King had sustained great casualties in just getting to Torque, and ultimately Torque's army is still intact for the time being, so it shouldn't affect them directly. And Gorba mostly just wants it to be known that Torque soldiers have to fight to the bitter end, and if we know anything from what we've heard about the Quanrong, they will indeed be doing so. As ultimately Torque is prioritising his own battle at the moment, since, even as he has to admit, his enemies right now are extremely troublesome. With that, we have Bajior, and a shot of him and his clan just carving through Gorba's soldiers at this point, with his dual wielding and his riding, armless. Bajior is just an absolute monster here. And at Gorba's HQ, we see that even his own elite troops are with little match against Bajior. But not just Bajior, we also get to see Shunmen again, which is good, because I hadn't actually been sure whether Shunmen had been incapacitated when the Quanrong were initially introduced, and we saw that some of their soldiers were able to go head to head with some of Yotanwa's crack troops. Thankfully, Shunmen is alive and kicking, so we see here he literally runs on top of one of these sub-commanders of Gorba's, just kills him instantly. And he even has to boast that, alright, you might be focusing on Bajior here, but you've risked forgetting that the Birdfang tribe is the fastest of Yotanwa's. And soon we see that not only Bajior has broken through and got his work done, but Tajifu is also in full capacity here, and he's got his infantry as well. And with Tajifu, Shunmen and Bajior all in the same place, and they're all on the same page, it's time for them to close in on Gorba's main army. But Shunmen notes they'll have to rush it, since the sun is already on its way down. But right as they're pretty reassured that they can get the job done in good time, Gorb himself also takes a look at the sky, and with that he decides to make a tactical retreat, taking everything back to the city. And even his own troops are surprised by this. After all, they've got twice the number of men ready just to take Badger's head. I mean, yeah, not surprising there, given how amazing Badger is. But Gorba pretty dismissively says, no, Badger is just someone we can take out any time we want. Ultimately, there are far more important fish to fry here. And it's really about retreating orderly and making sure that Badger and his men can't break in. Ultimately, this retreat seems to be going as planned, and Junmen, Tajifu, Badger are all caught off guard. They note that Gorba was stated to be the smartest of Rorzor's three brothers, and he's showing it here, much like with Heki to an extent. He's being pragmatic. He knows at this point that it isn't worth wasting his troops on trying to take down these commanders. Ultimately, they have the home field advantage here. They have the advantage of the terrain and their home field, so they can afford to just retreat back into their own natural fortress of a city. But this chapter is all about being outplayed, one on top of the other. And of course, Shunmin is noting that the one who understands how important it is that they have to take Gorba's head right here, then and now is, of course, none other than Yotanwa herself. And with that, Yotanwa and her troops ride in, right behind Gorba's back. And Gorba is pretty, stone-faced about the whole thing, even though Yotanwa, the Lord of Death herself, is right in front of him. And the reason for that is because while Yotanwa has gotten the jump on Gorba with her army, she herself is surprised to be surrounded by another army, that being Shinsuiju. And Gorba even has to note somewhat begrudgingly that everything had happened just as he has predicted. And just that great scene of Shinsuiju's army surrounding Yotanwa, he's standing sole alone on his horse on this, high point, just staring down Yotanwa. And Yotanwa knows fully well who he is. Shinsuiju tells her pretty much that, he'd predicted this moment when she'd finally show herself at the front lines. She's out of her HQ and therefore she's exposed. And Yotanwa's, men are shocked that Shinsuiju was able to surround her, and they assume that he must have brought his troops from the city. And ultimately, Yotanwa was now in a pincer movement here, very dangerous. And they come to the conclusion that yes, Shinsuiju had seen through their tactics and positioned his own tactics accordingly. And even worse is that amongst Shinsuiju's army, working alongside him is, of course, Rorzor the Quanrong king himself and his army. And so Yotanwa's troops are really outnumbered here, and that's not even getting into the fact that Katali and the Meva tribe, one of her own two core armies, that army has effectively been scattered. Heki and Katali had to make the retreat with Katali's death, and even though the Figo king has achieved his objective and slain Torque, from what we can hear, it was a Pyrrhic victory at best. So things aren't really looking good for Yotanwa at this rate. But, as I said earlier, it's good to have had an enemy that can really put Yotanwa into a corner. So before that, I did tend to think that she tended to win a bit too easily somewhat, Some of her achievements were off-screen, like when she took that city of Enri that time. And obviously, when she managed to aid the Qin forces at Sai, she was able to catch Ruboku by surprise there, because he was unfamiliar with her. But now Ruboku knows full well just how dangerous Yotanwa is, and Shinsuiju he's clearly picked very carefully as the one who's going to fight Yotanwa. Shinsuiju really is a dangerous enemy. Keep in mind, we don't even know his entire backstory. There's all these hints about his connection to the Zhongnu or to the Quanrong. hopefully the next couple of chapters will shed light on what exactly Shinchuiju's backstory is. I mean, Rosa already even made the kind of reference of, oh, you must have this really interesting past to you. And I'm really excited to see how that goes. Not really sure how Yotanwa can get out of this situation, really. Can she even get out of this situation? It's going to be a tough one. But then again, we've seen that Yotanwa is good at, getting herself out of these situations. I mean, she's had to have done, considering she united single-handedly most of the mountain tribes initially. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this chapter. It was nice to have the refreshing change of pace and change of scenery back to Yotanwa and the core army. That was needed, I think. As much as I like Heki, his situation can be put to the side for now, because ultimately it all comes down to Yotanwa, how she fares, because of course if she dies here, then the mountain tribe's screwed, basically. I mean, literally she's the linchpin that holds them together, so she can't end up dying here. So it's really crucial do or die right now. Yeah, otherwise, hopefully we'll continue to focus on Yotanwa and Shinsuiju for the next couple of chapters. No moving back to either Heki or Katari or Shin or Orsen, none of that. Just want to see Yotanwa in action, really fighting full strength here. But yeah, it's an enjoyable chapter. Foreshadows trouble for Yotanwa, but really good to see how she's going to be facing the fight of her life here. But give me your thoughts in the comments if you have any down below. This is Solaris290, signing out.